Normally, I'm really fond of Hugo Pratt. He is one of my favorite European comic book artists. Not only I like his drawing style, which is always very spontaneous, I think his storytelling technique is just superb. Hi, I'm Annie, and it is Thursday, so it is Eurocomic Thursday on my channel. Every Thursday I talk about a European comic or graphic novel, and today I thought I would talk about this European comic Once Upon a Sky. And I must make a footnote that the English translation is published in a regular book. The comic Hugo Pratt made was published in a book called Once Upon a Sky, and this is also a book about the Italian Air Force, the history of the Italian Air Force. But as I don't have this edition, I am only talking about the comic Hugo Pratt made that was published in this book, Once Upon a Sky. And I have read this Dutch translation of it. So that's what I am talking about. So why do I think this isn't Pratt's best work? Well, first, let's look at the story. He does, usually I think he does a great job at telling stories. And Once Upon a Sky has two storylines. One is a love triangle between two Italian brothers. Both brothers are in the Italian army. And one woman. And the other one is the friendship between one of these Italian brothers, and he is in the Italian Air Force. He's a fighter pilot, and he is friends with this English fighter pilot, and they are friends before the war. The story is set in Ethiopia, which I find an interesting setting, and it is set in 1940. So it is just at the brink of the Second World War. So it's just before the war started and when war is declared. So far, so good. Like I said, I don't mind an interesting story about, or solid story about love, friendship, and war. This can be a really interesting story, especially when it's set in not your usual war setting. I don't remember reading much war stories that are set in Africa. So that's really an interesting concept. But I don't think Hugo Pratt is making the most of this story. The build-up of the story is very slow, and the love triangle bit is just meandering along a bit, and this takes up really a big chunk of the story. And well, there isn't much interesting, in my opinion, not much interesting going on in that aspect, as the two brothers are just being noble about it. The only thing is that the lady in question, she is a bit dramatic about it, but there's no conflict in it, and the drama isn't, well, I don't feel there is some sort of urgency, or that the drama builds up, or there isn't any conflict about it developing in this love triangle bit. So I think that is a weak spot. The most interesting part, I think, of the story is the friendship between the Italian fighter pilot and the British fighter pilot. But again, I don't think Pratt is making the most about it, about that subject either, as well, there is no conflict of loyalties, or I didn't feel any real suspense in it. So I think the characters, they lack a little bit of depth, I think. They lack depth. There is no real character development, and there is not a lot. There is action in it. And I think there is a little bit of suspense in it when there are air fights going on. But yeah, all the characters are just being noble about it. So there's no conflict. So I think this is a weak point in the storytelling. Maybe it's because this was based upon a true story. Hugo Pratt was in Abyssinia in 1941, and he witnessed an air combat when he saw a live airplane fight going on, and someone told him this story. And well, if these true stories, they can be interesting, but sometimes, well, not always are these true stories, when followed to the letter, are the most interesting ones, I think. It lacks drama. This story lacks dramatization, if that's the English expression. So what about the illustrations? I always like the spontaneous drawing style of Hugo Pratt. But in this graphic novel, even for Hugo Pratt, the drawings feel a little bit rushed. But I must admit that the illustrations of the air fights that are going on, the fights between the planes, they are excellent. He did an excellent job at drawing these air fights. Like, for example, this is just an example of, he did research of what the planes look like. And let's see if I can if I can find an air fight. Well, this is an air fight scene, which I think he did an excellent job at depicting, illustrating, I must admit. Personally, I think Hugo Pratt did a better job at illustrating and telling a storytelling technique with Gli Scopioni del Deserto. I think it's literally translated desert scorpions. These are a series of graphic novels that are also set during the Second World War and also set in Africa. And I think he did a better job at telling those stories and making those graphic novels, in my opinion. Regrettably, these are only available in Italian, Dutch, and French. So if you can read those languages, I can highly recommend those. Well, keep reading those European comics, and I hope to see you in the next video.